Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
it's the non, it's the COVID look. What barber have you been using?
Quarantine beard.
I'm using a barber. Our barbers just opened up like yesterday, so nobody's had a haircut here for like months, like literally 3 months. It's been
Yes.
yeah, 3 full months.
Us too. Driving me
80
crazy.
86 days. That's yeah. I'm trying to hide the gray. I'm a spring chicken, don't you know?
Okay, well, it's 3 o'clock or 1 minute after three, so we'll get started. I just want to introduce everyone to Julie Johnson. Gosh, I've known Julie for many years. I can remember when we first started selling Tres Sabores. It was probably 2004, 2003, something like that. One of the most intriguing people I've ever met. She's a wealth of knowledge, and she has a wonderful site in Napa Valley, just beside the Rutherford Bench. It's beautiful. So I hope that we can see part of the ranch and the vineyard, because it's just amazing. So take it away, Julie.
Well, hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm actually very grateful because we have a little bit of a cloud cover over, but where am I anyway? I am in Rutherford and I am on the western Rutherford Bench. So I am about a mile and a half west of Grigich Hills. I'm about a mile and a half north of Inglenook, and I'm about a mile and a half south and east of Long Meadow Ranch, if that gives you just a little bit of an idea. Most importantly, exactly 3.1 miles south of Gotts, and I am and I am 5 miles north of Bouchon Bakery. For those of you who need essential nourishment, and we're now actually in our vineyard. I'm in our vineyard that was planted in 1987. And yes, I am old as the hills, as most of you know. I moved here with my soon-to-be husband, John Williams, in 1980 and started Frog's Leap in 1981. In 1987, we bought this property to be the first official vineyard for Frog's Leap, and it was planted to Zinfandel. Now, we actually managed to butt it over to Cabernet, and I am actually in the Cabernet vineyard right now. So I'm hoping to give you just a little bit of an introduction to what we do here, which is organic farming, and to a couple of our wines. I hope you've got some wines in front of you. I certainly do, and I'm going to start this off with a little toast to all of you for hanging in there and hopefully being safe. This is our estate Zinfandel, by the way. And I need this because Sue, I'm very nervous about being in front of everybody. I'm so excited to be in front of everybody. So I think I actually need this. We have had some incredible support from you all. And that is, I can't tell you how much that's appreciated. So let's take it away. And I want to show you, hopefully I'm not being redundant with what other people have done. So from the very, very beginning, John and I felt very strongly, because of kids growing up here on the ranch and just because of simply that it was the right thing to do, that we transitioned this little vineyard to organic farming and to organic certification right away upon moving here in 1987. Now, these grapes were planted in 1972, so they're some of the oldest Zinfandel and Cabernet Sauvignon here now in Napa. But we immediately transitioned them to organic. And what did that mean? It simply meant no addition of anything synthetic. But what did it really mean? It meant diversity, and it meant strong attention to the health and the vitality of the microbiome in the soil. It meant being able to be out here and celebrate all of the natural rhythms that help keep everything. I started to say the garden, and that's kind of how I feel about it. Help to keep all of these individuals around me healthy. These vines start about 10 feet from my front door. So I think what I'm always looking forward to here is bringing people here to an immersive experience, because there's something special about terroir. And that is really what we're talking about here. And the essential about terroir is that you can experience it either intellectually or viscerally. And I think intellectually it's very subtle. It's exhilarating in a subtle and quiet way, but it definitely is immersive, and it definitely is something that creeps into you and makes you understand inherently what a place is, what a culture is. And then it's also experiencing the vineyard and the place viscerally. And for me right now, because it looks like we've got a really good set, right now, experiencing a vineyard like this is about being exuberant and being joyful. And we all have simple joys to deal with. I mean, we've got the simple joys of the red-tailed hawks having a family again this year. For all the years that I've been here, the red-tailed hawks have been having families here. To hear the robins and the bluebirds, to see the pomegranates that bring in the bees and the hummingbirds, to see it all working, for me, it's been about exuberant joy. So speaking of joy, let's take a look. Come on close here. Let's take a look at exactly what's going on in the vineyard right now. So these are clusters of Cabernet Sauvignon. They're really, can you get, let's get even closer down into them. Can you guys see that? Really darn good. What we're worried about right now is, come over here, can you see this? We're worried about something that would leave a lot of these little characters on here. And I'm like, that's looking pretty good. This is going to size up, what, you think about a half pound, quarter of a pound to half a pound. So we're going to get to pull back a little bit. So right now, these berries to be, the vine is still growing. So it's, you can see that here, it's putting a lot of energy into making more photosynthetic material. It's getting ready, it's starting to build the energy in the vine that gives it sufficient energy in order to, oh, and here's Zinfandel. Oh, this is Cabernet too. Okay. So it's, are you sure we didn't need this? This is also a time, by the way, that we refine the vines, right? If vines were just let to live go, they would propagate, because their job is to ripen these little berries and get birds and animals to eat them and spread them around. Right now, oh, pity the poor thing that would try to eat this, because they would get a bitter little pill indeed. It's not very much except pretty intense acid and a very, very underripe, very bitter seed. So the vine's natural protection is to keep the little critters from eating it right now. Even deer are going to want to eat, even our sheep on our property, they're going to want to eat all the leaves, but they're not going to want to eat the grapes right now, which is a good thing. Later on, what's happening, of course, in about another, I can almost wrap myself in a stole like this, right? I got to give you all a stole. So, oh, okay, just a size comparison here. Everybody's today. This is a Zinfandel cluster. You can see right away already how different these are. So Zinfandel is about at least 2.5 times as big as the Cabernet Sauvignon. And you could already see what's happening with the Zinfandel and the Cabernet. Cabernet here is quite, the berries are smaller, quite a bit more uniform. Eventually they'll have a much thicker skin, but they'll continue to be able to be resilient to rain, to continue to have this spacing. Zinfandel, look at the heavy shoulder on this, look at the ombre on this. I mean, and already you can see that there are various size berries. This is setting the stage for not only, look at that cluster. I mean, look how tightly packed the berries are already. I mean, it's really incredible. What the Zinfandel will be doing is ripening probably pretty irregularly. That's the hallmark of Zinfandel. It's one of the reasons why it's a little bit cantankerous to work with and try to figure out when to pick. But truly, my job now is going forward is to find the perfect time to pick. So These guys are going to stay bitter and green while the vine continues to build more photosynthetic material. And then voila, in about really another month, the vine is going to literally flip a switch and start to ripen and soften the grapes. There's an enzymatic change in the skins of the grapes. They start to get sweet. They start, in the case of red grapes, of course, they start to color. There are chemical changes that if you expose the grapes to the sunlight, that's one of the hallmarks of my Zin because it gets lots of sunlight in the morning, and that makes that wonderful floral violet character in the grapes. So we put a lot of emphasis on opening up the morning sun side to sun exposure and closing down the afternoon side. But the great thing then going forward is John would say, gave me a suggestion, it's almost like maintaining a bonsai. You're really looking to make sure that there's just the right amount of fruit on the vine, and you're looking to make sure that there's enough air and light and circulation, especially in an organic vineyard. That makes a lot of sense because we're minimizing the inputs, we're minimizing the mildew control, we're leaving all of the control up to other insects, up to predator insects that live here on the property because of the diversity of the plantings. So we're putting a lot up to essentially risk, except not risk. We've been doing this now for 34 years this way, and we've been very successful, knock on wood, that everything is going to happen correctly. But as we go forward then, we will be taking some of these clusters off. And indeed, the way I make my rosé is simply to go through the entire 8 acres of Zinfandel. And when these shoulders are at about 20-degree Brix, that's when I pick, and I leave the rest of the cluster behind. And that we go back in several times, beginning about 3 or 4 weeks later, and pick the actual Zinfandel, beautiful Zinfandel. Just taking that cluster, that little bit of a shoulder off, helps to focus the energy of the vine going forward and is responsible for not only giving me bright and happy rose and brilliantly citrusy, yummy, crispy rosé, but then also Zinfandel that's refined and cultured and ready to pick. I'm looking for perfect phenolic ripeness in Zinfandel. It's very specific terroir thing. That is something that you get just by being here and by discovering things. The vines that I'm picking, that I'm looking at right now, the Cabernet vines, are part of 3 acres of vines. We'll pick the Cabernet about 5 different times just to get that point, at that point in the terroir that gives us perfect ripeness. The same thing for the Zinfandel. If we count picking the rosé once, then we'll pick for Zinfandel moving up the hill. The vineyard ripens moving up the hill, and that gives us a chance. You know, a long time ago when this fruit was in transition and it was starting to come to Tres Sabores since 1999, basically. And I started to discover that this wasn't just a monolithic 12-acre vineyard, that it had all sorts of little microclimates. I mean, if you look at Burgundy, it could be a half a hectare or a quarter of a hectare even. It's kind of, I'm not intentionally trying to compare to Burgundy, but I am saying that this little 12-acre vineyard gets picked about 10 different times to try because I can try to steal the grapes away from the birds and the other critters and make wine that really is very reflective of what's happening in the terroir at that particular moment. I used to go pick blackberries at a You Pick Blackberry spot in Santa Cruz. And I think that's not only the acid, it's not only the pH, but it's really what it tastes like. It's really what brings that all together. So it's this beautiful vine translated to our acumen in being able to test and taste at the same time, beginning all too soon. So a quick little tour. If you walk with me, we're going to do a quick little tour and come over here, just rotate around. So here's here's Cabernet Vineyard, and we're spending a lot of time. Miguel, you want to show us? This is my assistant, Miguel. It's incredible. He's going to show you what he's doing to try to give a little bit of light and air and structure to the vines. We pin up all of these shoots to give lots of air and light, and we actually shelter the fruit on the west side to keep it from sunburning. Now on this side, but on this side you can see, maybe back up a little bit. We've actually opening up the vineyard on this side, taking off the laterals and leafing, so that this side, the eastern side, is open to the sun, and that's where we get those wonderful floral characters in my Zinfandel and my Cabernet and my Petit Syrah. Now, once we pick, what happens here? And this is the other thing that you can do if you have a small little perspective on vines. I mean, remember, most of my grapes are picked multiple times. We make everything in small bins. We make everything in small lots. Most of the wines that come to you are a production of only 500 to about 700 cases now. So very, very small production. And one of the things that makes that doable, that we can do, that's such a wonderful extension of terroir, is this. So I'm sure most of you have seen these. This is the size bin. This is the bin. Holds about 3/4 of a ton of grapes. It holds, John, what did we figure out? How many vines? 200 vines of fruit go into each of these. So we're getting about 3 bottles, 2 or 3 bottles of wine from each vine. And then we're getting about 2.5 barrels only, but 3/4 of a ton, 2.5 barrels of wine. And everything that we make is hand punched down. And I would welcome you all to come and get your t-shirts dirty and feel like a grape here, because we need some help. It's hard work actually doing punch down, which is why the person who's holding the right here, Cole, is here. He's strong, he's mighty, and he's going to help us with punch down, right, Miguel? Yeah. Anyway, so everything that we make is made in these small 3/4 ton bins. Really important, because if we're picking maybe 3 tons on one day, those 3 tons can go into 5 bins. 3 of those 5 bins I will let go through natural fermentation, go through wild yeast fermentation, and voila, what a wonderful way to bring the grape and the terroir to fruition, than to put all of the energy, continue that energy with all of the microorganisms, the yeast and the bacteria that come in on the grapes and that let us ferment it naturally. I do some cultured yeast fermentation, and that's really important too. What I love about that is that sets the tone. It gives it some structure. I use actually with the Zinfandel a lot of Burgundy yeast, ironically and interestingly, because that helps give some structure. But the wild yeast gives it that aromatic. That's part of what I keep coming back to now. What I want to leave you with is the message of just being this vineyard, being working towards having this vineyard be a place where you can be joyful and celebrate. Almost 50 years of life of these vines come to fruition. Now, if you were here, we'll continue our tour a little bit. If you were here, next to this vineyard, probably in about 1880s. And so this place actually, one of the reasons I love being here is because it really does have history. We know that these magnificent olives that are very productive were accompanied by Petit Syrah grapes before the turn of the century. Between Prohibition and 1972, when these vines were planted, there were pears, orchards of pears and walnuts and prunes, plums here as well. So let's go back and talk a little bit about wine. I wanted to share with you just a little bit about one of the wines that you work with so much, and that is our Porque No. So how did I get Tres Sabores? Well, Tres Sabores is from a beautiful old song, a bolero, Sabor a mi, my flavor, my taste. It was suggested to me in a very romantic moment that each vine, that what you really did want to explore in each glass of wine were three things, three flavors: the vine, the terroir, and the good company around the glass. Well, I had three Zinfandels then, and then those folks started to teach me how to make Zinfandel, but we had some wine left over. And in the early years, in 2000, we had a handful of barrels of odd things of Zin and Cab and Syrah and Petit Verdot and Merlot. And we just like, what am I going to do with these vines? What am I going to do with this extra wine? And we kind of all said, well, why don't we find out what we can do if it all pulls it together? And everybody kind of said, well, why not put it all together? And then we said, well, por qué no? And so I thought it was actually going to be a one-off. I thought it was just going to be a 1 year extra wine, but it turned out everybody loved it. So I had to have a label. I didn't want to pay very much in the fine tradition of paying essentially nothing for labels at Frog's Leap, and wanting to reflect the spirit and the individuality of the wine. The first incarnation was a whole collection of hand-woven Oaxacan, I guess you'd call them cocktail napkins. And I took the yellow cocktail napkin down to my designer, and he actually just had it embroidered, Porque no. So this cocktail napkin actually became the Porque no label. And people loved it so much, the spirit of it, and the fact that it was literally and figuratively like giving all the grapes a party in our backyard or on our crush pad in those small little bins and making wine out of it and blending. At that point in 2000, the whole idea of blending Cabernet with Petit Syrah was pretty crazy. You usually blend Zinfandel and Petit Syrah, but to blend Zinfandel and Cabernet, pretty much unheard of at that time. So it was fun to start a blend that we really hadn't done too much of that in the past. So today we make a Zinfandel Cabernet Petit Syrah Petit Verdot blend that I hope you guys have been doing such a wonderful job selling this, and I really, really appreciate it. But I hope that you'll continue to enjoy it. Most people who come here, I think they say, oh, we didn't ever expect anything made with Cabernet and Petit Syrah together. What's that? But it's so smooth and it's so fruity and it's so delightful. What can we do with that? I'm trying very hard to keep the price down, trying very hard to keep the price approachable for you so that you can get this and many of my wines, most of my wines, to customers at a reasonable price, especially now. But I like to think that all my wines, my Zin, my Cabernet, my Sauvignon Blanc, my Rosé, my standalone Petit Syrah, I'd like to think that all of the wines will be wines that people really truly enjoy because of their grace. They're not very high in alcohol, and because of their fruit-forward character, with a very nice throughput on the palate. I don't know what else to say too much about the individual wines, because I hope you all have an individual way of, you all have your own approach to wine for sure, and you sell lots of wine, you know everything about things that you're tasting things that I couldn't possibly have a perspective on. But I did call one of my wines Perspective, and as you can see down the vineyard row here, this label is from an old lithograph, and it really is meant to portray the perspective that you feel going into a vineyard and taking a look at what the essence of that vineyard is. And again, returning to the terroir, saying, what is the terroir? What is the place? What are you guys? What are you vines feeling like today? And what do you want to be? Do you want to be a high intensity alcoholic monster, or do you want to have something with a little bit more grace and resilience and craft yourselves with somebody like me? And in general, I would say, since for the past over 30 years, since 87, they've been sticking pretty close by my side, and I've been really about that. So I hope I've given you just a little bit of an introduction to Tres Sabores today and a little bit about the farming. You can kind of see what's happening on the ground with our soil. We're right in the middle right now of the lowest rainfall that we've had in this region since 1976. One of the things I didn't mention is that I've been dry farming here without any irrigation whatsoever for all of these years, essentially. So there's not a lot of organic farming in the Napa Valley, still certified organic farming, and we were the first to be certified organic. And there's sure not a lot of dry farming. But the mulching that we do, the carbon retention activities that we do, the minimal tilling that we do, the cover crop planting that we do to try to increase the water carrying capacity and the health of the vineyard is all about that. So if you look at these vines right now, they're looking pretty healthy. Here's my feeling. It is all about terroir. It is all about the communication. The footsteps of the farmer is great, but there's a network of communication that goes on here that's going to make these vines do really well this year. I have to believe that, right? I have to have that faith, despite the lack of rainfall, that it's going to work because of the preparation we put into it. But there is this incredible communication network that's going on underground, even as we speak, with the incredible population of microorganisms and these incredible old, deep-rooted, ever-reaching, ever-vital vines. Questions? I think I've outcovered my time. I hope
That's beautiful, Julie. That's really beautiful.
we made it without freezing the screen out in the vineyard. Hey!
Does anyone have any questions? You can send a chat message or turn on your microphone and ask Julie questions.
Julie, why Zinfandel?
Well, it was here, Jorge. It was here. It was here. It was planted. The man who was here was an old cowboy. Where I'm standing right now actually used to be a long time ago a petit vineyard, but after he moved here, he made this a corral. And the Zinfandel at that point went into Gallows Hardy Burgundy. He wasn't a vintner, he was a farmer. And so when we came here in 87, people said, oh, wait a minute, this is Rutherford. You wanna make this Cabernet Sauvignon, right? I mean, you're right, your immediate neighbor is Inglenook. You're right around the corner from the Freemark Bochet vineyard. You're within a bird's throw distance of the great Beaulieu Private Reserve vineyards of Doge de la Tour. I mean, but we said, no, we love Zinfandel. Let's just hang in there. We butted over 3 acres of Cabernet, but was it foolish, Jorge? I don't know. But I really do love Zinfandel's compatibility with food. I have to say that. Zinfandel is a wine for all seasonings and a wine for all seasons in many ways. And I know it's a little crazy, but I'm actually pretty glad that we hung on to Zinfandel. So let's say to everybody, yes, I look forward to meeting you. Britton, I see you're on there. Would you guys please send people our way? We can put them up. We have a nice place to sit. We have a nice place we have a great place for a barbecue, as some of you know. But we also have a place for people to stay. We would so love to have people here. If people are wet at that time when they're venturing out, this little one, Dawn's going to bring her. This is Bria. This is one of our golden retrievers. Hi, Bree.
She and her friend Toby, who's Miguel's black lab, who comes to work every day. They've figured out how to chase. Want to say hi, Bree?
Here, want to say hi? It's okay. So anyway, now you meet some
Hey, Julie, this is Jennifer in Atlanta. My dog wants to say hi. He's a golden tube. He has his summer cut. So, all the
Julie,
same.
has tourism started picking up in Napa yet?
What?
Has tourism started picking back up in Napa
Oh,
yet?
no, we
at all?
just, thanks for asking. Yeah, a little bit. We just, most of the hotels are not open yet. B&Bs, no. We just opened up a week ago. Actually, yeah, a week ago today at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we were told that we could open, and we're going very slowly. We have special masks. We have a hand sanitizer attack dog. If you get within a foot and a half of the hand sanitizer, it will
Whoa.
sort of like you will be safe, whether you whether you want to or not. We're actually on Govino glasses right now. Very cool Govino glasses. We have little mini welcome packages and social distancing. It's rough because people are coming here from areas of higher infection, and so we're being very very. I mean, some of you don't know, I used to be a public health
Be a nurse.
and so I'm pretty tuned into that. Our little merry little tiny little band of people are very we're like a family here, so we mask on the outside and we come here and we're not masked, but our guests are all masked. So hopefully, as you know, you guys, all these little vineyards, it's going to be a while for you guys too. I know it's been rough because of all sorts of things, and now in Florida you're just about to have a convention. It's sort of like, whoa. I would know it. Oh, but if you have time, if you want to tune into something fun next Tuesday, it's been fun to do things. We have a virtual tour of the Pensacola Museum of Art. They picked Jorge No to match one of their pieces of art. And the curator and I and one of yours, Hillary, we're going to do a Zoom of one of the galleries at the Pensacola Museum of Art, and I'm going to be doing a tour. I'm going to be doing an evening with some opera singers. I've been doing. I love doing these. In a way, I love doing these Zooms. It's and now that I can get outside, I don't have to be in my kitchen. So yeah, but it's been rough. It's not fun not to be open. But Instagram, we've been having some fun, doing some crazy things. Rory, my son, and I have a series of In the Vineyard series that'll be on YouTube. So if you haven't, please follow us on Instagram. We're not, I made my goal of posting every day while we were nesting in place, but now we're not going to be quite as much because it takes so much time. Any other questions, people? I just appreciate you being on and joining us, and Neil, hello to the west coast of Florida. I missed that last comment. Sue, any other comments?
Hello.
Hello. Hi there, how are you? How's the coast?
Beautiful.
I haven't been out to the coast. They've been restricting visitors to beaches here. So still, if you're not a resident, they don't want you. So anyway, but we've been busy here in the vineyard. We've had there's lots to do in the vineyard. Lots and lots and lots of refining and focusing, and as John says, bonsai work here in the vineyard to fine tune it. But that's kind of what it is. It's not like you're putting every vine in a pedestal, but you're trying to figure out what's happening. So there you have it, guys.
Thank you so much, Julie. Good to see you.
Thanks, Julie.
Julie in the Vineyard. Thank you so much, you guys. Thank you for joining in. I appreciate it. Thank you.
It's great to see you.
Great to see you,
Thanks.
Julie.
Good to see you.
Thank you so much. You
Julie.
guys, thank you. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.